Evan Mercer lived a life so quiet that most people on Outpost RIA 9 did not remember his name. He repaired power conduits, recalibrated doors, and fixed heating units that no one cared about unless they failed. He ate alone, worked alone, and returned to a small living unit that felt more like storage than a home. Evan was human, ordinary and invisible, exactly how the station liked its low-level technicians. That changed on a day that began like any other. Evan was tightening a panel under Corridor C when the station alarm chimed. Not the warning kind, but the official announcement tone. He wiped sweat from his forehead and listened.
Attention all personnel. Due to updated interspecies housing regulations, some residential assignments will be adjusted.
Affected individuals will receive direct notice. Evan frowned. Housing changes usually meant higher-ranked staff getting better rooms. He went back to work, assuming it had nothing to do with him. An hour later, his wrist terminal vibrated. Notice. Residential Unit C-17 reassigned for shared occupancy. New resident arrival scheduled in 30 minutes. Evan stared at the screen. Shared occupancy? He hadn't had a roommate since training years ago, and those memories were not pleasant. He checked the message again, hoping it was a mistake. It wasn't. 30 minutes later, Evan stood awkwardly inside his small unit, trying to decide whether he should clean or pretend he didn't care. The room wasn't dirty, but it was very human. Plain walls, old tools stacked neatly, a single bed, and a faint smell of metal and recycled air. A soft chime sounded at the door. Evan took a breath and opened it. The alien girl standing outside was not what he expected. She was taller than him by a few centimeters, with pale silver skin that reflected the corridor lights like moonstone. Her eyes were large and deep blue, almost glowing. Dark markings curved along her temples and down her neck in elegant patterns. She wore a fitted uniform with unfamiliar symbols and carried only a small case. She looked past Evan into the room, then back at him. "This unit is acceptable," she said calmly. Evan blinked. Hello? She stepped inside without waiting for permission. Evan turned, startled. "Wait, who are you?" She placed her case gently on the floor, then faced him fully. Her posture was relaxed, but something about her presence filled the room. "My designation is Sayla of the Terex Collective," she said. "I am your assigned cohabitant." Evan's brain took a moment to catch up. "You're my roommate?" "Yes." He rubbed the back of his neck. "No one told me it would be an alien. I mean, not that I mind, I just, Sayla tilted her head slightly, studying him.
"Your discomfort is noted. It is not required." Before Evan could respond, she moved toward the window, scanning the area outside, as if checking for threats.
"What are you doing?" Evan asked. "Confirming security," she replied. "This location has 3 access points and minimal defensive barriers." Evan frowned. "It's a living unit, not a bunker." Sayla looked at him, genuinely confused. "The distinction is irrelevant. That was the first strange thing. The second came later that evening." Evan was heading to the station's shared dining area when Sayla stepped into his path. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Dinner," he replied. "Protein stew night." She considered this.
"I will accompany you. You don't have to. I do." The dining hall felt unusually quiet when they entered together. Humans and aliens alike stared.
Terex were rare on Rhea. 9, and they almost never mixed closely with humans. Sayla walked beside Evan, her steps matching his pace perfectly. When a group of loud workers laughed near Evan's usual table, one of them glanced at him and smirked, then froze when Sayla's eyes met his. She did nothing. She didn't speak or gesture. The worker looked away immediately. Evan noticed. What was that about? Potential threat neutralized. Sayela said simply. Evan nearly dropped his tray. What? Threat? She pointed subtly. That individual has a history of verbal hostility toward you. Evan stared at her. How do you know that? I observe, she said. It is my responsibility. Responsibility? Evan repeated. Sayela looked at him, her expression serious. You are under my care. The words sent a strange chill through him. The next few days followed the same pattern. Sayela woke earlier than Evan and prepared the unit each morning, adjusting lighting and temperature to what she said were optimal conditions for his species. She walked with him to work. She waited outside maintenance areas, watching silently while he repaired systems. When someone interrupted him or spoke sharply, Sayela stepped closer, not threatening, but present. People backed off without understanding why. Station rumors spread quickly. That tech guy got himself a Tarek's bodyguard? No, I heard she claimed him or something. Tarek's don't just live with people for no reason. Evan heard the whispers and felt uneasy. One evening, after a long shift, he finally asked, Sayela, he said, sitting on his bed, why are you really here? She stood across the room, arms loosely crossed.
Because you were selected.
Selected for what? She hesitated. It was the first time Evan had seen her hesitate. My people identify individuals of significance, she said carefully.
You meet several markers? Evan laughed softly. You must be mistaken.
I'm nobody. Sayela's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in focus. That is incorrect, she said. You are unaware of your own value. He shook his head. Look, I appreciate the help, really, but you don't have to protect me. I can take care of myself. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. You misunderstand. This is not a task assigned to me by your authorities.
Then who assigned it? Evan asked. I did. The room felt smaller.
You decided to move in with me, Evan said slowly, and start controlling parts of my life because you wanted to? Yes. Why? Sayela met his eyes and held them. Because you belong under my protection. Evan stood up. I don't belong to anyone. For a moment, Sayela looked genuinely surprised. Then she nodded once. That response aligns with human behavioral independence. That doesn't mean I'm okay with it, Evan said. She considered his words carefully. Clarification accepted. I will not restrict your choices. He exhaled. Good. But, she continued, I will still remain. Why? Because you are not safe yet. Evan frowned. Sayela looked toward the door, her senses clearly alert. From those who do not yet realize, she said, what humans are capable of becoming. Evan didn't sleep well that night. He dreamed of alarms, shadows, and distant stars watching him. The next morning, the station went into partial lockdown. An unidentified vessel had entered nearby space, unknown design, unknown origin. Security teams mobilized, and civilians were ordered to stay inside. Evan was still processing the alert when Sayela placed a hand on his shoulder. You will stay with me, she said.
Sayela, I need to report to maintenance, he argued. Power grids are secondary, she interrupted.
Your survival is primary, he stared at her. You really think something bad is coming? Yes. As if on cue, the station shook slightly, just enough to feel. Sayela stepped in front of Evan without thinking, her body angled protectively. Evan realized something then. She wasn't acting. She truly believed he mattered, and for the first time in his life, someone else did too. Outside the unit, alarms echoed through the station, and unknown forces moved closer. Evan stood behind the alien girl who had moved into his life without permission and started acting like he belonged to her. He didn't know why she chose him, but whatever was coming next, he sensed one thing clearly. His quiet life was over. The lockdown lasted longer than anyone expected.
Outpost Rhea, 9 sealed its outer sections, and security drones filled the corridors like silent insects.
Evan stayed inside the unit with Sayla, listening to alerts echo through the station. Every few minutes, the lights dimmed and returned, as if the station itself was nervous. Evan paced near the wall. "Maintenance is going to be a mess after this," he muttered. "Power fluctuations, stress fractures. You are attempting to distract yourself," Sayla said. He stopped. "Is it that obvious?" "Yes." She stood near the door, her posture calm but alert, as if she could sense danger through the metal walls. Evan noticed she had positioned herself between him and the entrance without even thinking about it. "You don't have to guard me like that," he said, quietly. "I do," she replied. "It is instinct. That word again," Evan said. "Instinct." Sayla turned to face him.
My species survives because we listen to it. Before Evan could answer, the station's public channel activated. A calm but tense voice filled the room.
"Attention! Unknown vessel has not responded to communication attempts. Energy readings suggest advanced scanning technology. All non-essential personnel remain sheltered."
Evan swallowed. Scanning for what? Sayla's eyes narrowed slightly.
Not what. Who?
The words settled heavily between them. Hours passed. Evan eventually sat down, exhaustion creeping in. Sayla remained standing, unmoving. He watched her for a while, then sighed. "You're not going to rest, are you?"
I do not require rest at this time. Still, he said. You can sit? She hesitated, then lowered herself onto the edge of the chair across from him.
For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Evan broke the silence.
"You said my survival is primary. Why?"
Sayla looked at him carefully, choosing her words. "Because your loss would alter projected outcomes." "Outcomes of what?" "Of future conflict," she said. "Of alliances."
"Of survival?"
Evan laughed weakly.
You're talking like I'm some kind of key figure? You are, Sayla replied without hesitation. Evan shook his head.
"I fix doors. You fix systems that others ignore," she corrected. "You see problems before they become failures. That is not insignificant." He didn't know how to respond to that. The lockdown finally eased. After 12 long hours, the unknown vessel retreated without explanation, leaving behind questions and fear. When the station reopened, the mood had changed. People spoke in lower voices. Security presence doubled. Evan stepped into the corridor with Sayla beside him, and the usual background noise felt different, heavier. As they walked, 2 station officers stopped them.
"Sayla of the Terex Collective," one said formally. "You are requested for a briefing." Sayla nodded.
"He will accompany me." The officer glanced at Evan. "He's not authorized." "He is," Sayla said calmly. Something in her tone made the officer hesitate. After a brief pause, he nodded.
"Very well."
Inside the briefing room, holographic displays showed scans of the unknown vessel. Alien officials from several species appeared via projection. Evan felt out of place immediately. One of them spoke. The vessel was observing human infrastructure patterns. Another added, specifically low-level systems. Evan stiffened. Sayla noticed.
"Clarify," she said.
The hologram shifted, highlighting maintenance corridors, power nodes, and access routes. Areas Evan worked in daily. They were mapping vulnerabilities, the alien explained, but also behaviors. Evan swallowed. "They were watching us work?" "Yes," the figure replied. "And how individuals respond under stress." Sayla turned slightly toward Evan. "You were correct to prioritize maintenance." Evan didn't feel proud. He felt exposed. After the meeting, rumors spread faster than before. Some said the unknown species was preparing an invasion. Others claimed they were judging which species was worth enslaving. Evan returned to work, but nothing felt the same. Colleagues who once ignored him now watched him closely. Some were respectful, others were suspicious. During a repair shift, a supervisor approached him. "Mercer," she said, "you're being reassigned to Central Systems." Evan blinked. "That's above my clearance."
"It is now," she replied. "Orders from command." As Evan walked away, he felt Sayala's presence behind him, steady and silent.
Central Systems were cleaner, brighter, and far more important than the places Evan was used to. He worked carefully, double-checking everything. The station depended on these systems more than most people realized. Halfway through his shift, alarms blared again, this time internal. "Power surge in Sector D," the announcement said. "Immediate response required." Evan reacted without thinking. He grabbed his tools and ran. Sayala followed. Sector D was already filling with smoke when they arrived. A conduit had overloaded, and energy arced dangerously across the walls. 2 technicians stood frozen, unsure what to do. "Cut the secondary flow!" Evan shouted. "But protocol," one began. "Now!" Evan snapped. They obeyed. Evan slid under the sparking panel, ignoring the heat, and rerouted the system manually. Sparks burned his sleeve, but the surge stopped. The light stabilized. For a moment, there was silence. Then one of the technicians whispered, "You saved the whole sector." Evan's hands shook as the adrenaline faded. He stood slowly, heart pounding.
Sayla was at his side instantly. "You are injured." "It's nothing," he said, though his arm stung badly.
She touched his sleeve gently, inspecting the burn. Her expression darkened, not with fear, but with something closer to anger. "Your safety was compromised," she said. Evan sighed.
"That's the job. That is unacceptable," she replied. Later, in the medical bay, Evan sat quietly as a medic treated his arm.
Sayala stood close enough that Evan could feel her presence like a shield. "You could have been killed," she said softly. "But I wasn't," he replied. "And people needed help." She studied him.
"You prioritize others over yourself."
He shrugged. Someone has to. That night, as they returned to the unit, Evan felt different. Tired, yes, but also solid. When they entered, Sayala stopped near the door.
"Today confirmed my assessment," she said. Evan leaned against the wall.
"That I'm reckless, that you are dangerous," she corrected. "Not by force."
By choice. By choice." He frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," she said, "to others, if not yet to you." Outside the station, distant stars shifted as unseen eyes continued to watch. And somewhere far beyond Rhea, 9 data was being analyzed, about a human technician who refused to stay small, and an alien protector who had chosen wisely. Evan lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of a future he never asked for. But for the first time, he did not feel alone. The attack came without warning. Outpost Rhea 9 was in the middle of a normal cycle when the lights cut out completely. Not dimmed, not flickering. Gone. The station fell into darkness so sudden and deep that people froze where they stood. Then the alarms began, not the standard alerts Evan knew, but a sharp, rising sound that made his chest tighten. Emergency lights snapped on, bathing the corridors in red. "Unauthorized breach detected," the station voice announced. "Multiple entry points compromised." Evan was in Central Systems when it happened. He grabbed the nearest railing to steady himself as the floor vibrated beneath his boots. "This is it," he whispered. Sayala was already moving. "Stay close to me," she said, her voice calm but firm. Evan nodded and followed as she led him out into the corridor. Security teams rushed past him, weapons ready, faces tense. Overhead screens flickered, showing distorted images of tall, angular figures forcing their way through airlocks. They were not the species from the unknown vessel.
These were worse.
They are Har,
Sayala said quietly.
Scavenger raiders. They test worlds before larger forces arrive. Evan felt his stomach drop.
Test how? By breaking them, she replied.
Explosions echoed through the station. Somewhere far off, metal screamed as something tore through it. They turned a corner and nearly collided with a group of fleeing civilians.
Panic filled the narrow hallway. Someone fell.
Another screamed. Sayala stepped forward, raising her voice, not shouting, but cutting through the chaos.
Move in an orderly line, she said. Follow the emergency markers.
You will survive if you do not scatter. Her confidence was strange, but it worked. People slowed. They listened. Evan watched in shock as the crowd obeyed her without question. As they moved toward a reinforced section, a blast rocked the corridor ahead of them. Smoke and debris filled the air. Through the haze, a car raider emerged. It was taller than a human, its body covered in segmented armor that looked grown rather than built. Its eyes glowed a dull red. In its clawed hands was a weapon humming with energy. Evan's breath caught. Sayala stepped in front of him instantly. The raider tilted its head, studying her. It made a harsh clicking sound. "Step aside," it said in broken common.
The human is valuable.
Evan's heart slammed in his chest. Sayala did not move. "He is protected," the car laughed, a harsh metallic sound. "By you?" It raised its weapon. Evan didn't think. He reached down, grabbed a loose maintenance tool from the floor, and hurled it at the overhead conduit above the raider. The impact cracked the already damaged panel. Energy surged. The conduit exploded, sending a wave of electricity through the raider's armor. It convulsed and collapsed, smoking. Silence followed. Evan stared at what he had done, his hands shaking. Sayala turned to him slowly. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with something close to awe. "You calculated that," she said. "I just
Reacted? Evan replied. That was not panic, she said.
That was decision. They didn't have time to talk. More car were coming.
They reached a sealed junction where a group of technicians and civilians were trapped. The blast doors were stuck halfway down, sparks raining from the control panel. Evan rushed forward. "I can fix this!" Sayla grabbed his arm.
It will expose you. I know, he said, but they can't get out.
She held his gaze for a long moment, then released him.
I will cover you. Evan slid under the half-closed door and reached the control panel. The system was fried, but the manual release was still intact.
Behind him, Sayla moved like a shadow, intercepting two raiders with precise, efficient strikes. She was fast, far faster than Evan had ever seen her move. Evan focused. He bypassed the damaged circuit, rerouted power from an emergency line, and forced the door open.
Go!
He shouted. People poured through, fear in their eyes, relief on their faces. Then the station shook violently. A deep, rumbling sound echoed through the structure. "They've reached the core sectors," Sayla said grimly.
If they take control, the station will fall.
Evan wiped sweat from his brow. "Then we stop them." She looked at him sharply.
You cannot fight them. I don't have to, he said. I just have to outthink them.
They moved fast, heading toward the maintenance spine, the hidden network of corridors most people didn't even know existed. Evan led the way, navigating turns and ladders with practiced ease. The car followed, confident and aggressive. Evan reached a junction overlooking a massive power chamber. Below them, car raiders were attempting to override the station's main reactor controls. "If they destabilize that," Evan said, "the station tears itself apart." "What do you propose?" Sayla asked. Evan took a breath.
I overload the auxiliary grid. That would kill you, she said instantly. Not if I do it manually and cut out in time, he replied. I know these systems. She stepped closer, her voice low. You are not expendable. He met her eyes. Neither are they. For the first time, Sayala looked uncertain. Then she nodded.
I will trust you. Evan descended into the chamber, moving along narrow platforms as energy surged around him. The heat was intense.
The noise was overwhelming. Carr noticed him and turned their weapons toward him. Before they could fire, the lights changed. Sayala had triggered emergency countermeasures from above, locking down weapon systems and redirecting defensive turrets, not to kill, but to herd the raiders into specific zones. Evan reached the auxiliary controls. His hands moved fast, precise. He rerouted energy flows, building pressure.
Sayla,
He shouted into the comm.
on my mark!
The pressure hit critical.
Now,
He yelled. She triggered the release. A massive surge of energy flooded the chamber, knocking the car off their feet and disabling their armor. The overload tripped their systems without breaching the reactor. Evan cut power and collapsed to his knees, gasping. Silence followed. Emergency lights stabilized. The alarms faded. Security teams flooded in, capturing the stunned raiders. Sayela was at Evan's side instantly, helping him stand. You succeeded, she said, her voice steady but filled with something deeper. Evan laughed weakly. Barely. Around them, humans and aliens stared, not at Sayla, but at Evan. A technician whispered, "He saved the station." Security officers nodded in agreement. Command staff arrived moments later, their expressions stunned. Evan felt the weight of their attention and suddenly wanted nothing more than to disappear, but Sayla stood beside him, unyielding. Later, in the quiet aftermath, Evan sat on a crate in a dim corridor, exhaustion pressing down on him. I didn't plan any of that, he said quietly. You did more than plan, Sayla replied.
You chose? He looked at her. You still think I belong to you? She was silent for a long time.
No, she said finally. I think you belong to yourself. Outside the station, long-range sensors picked up new signals, ships slowing, observing, reassessing. The galaxy had seen something unexpected that day, not a warrior, not a ruler, but a human who refused to let his home fall. And the Watchers took note. The station did not celebrate after the attack. Outpost Rhea 9 repaired itself in silence. Damaged corridors were sealed, shattered panels replaced, and the scars of battle slowly hidden behind fresh metal. But the people were different. They spoke carefully now. They watched more closely, and they watched Evan. He returned to work 3 days later, his arm still wrapped in a light brace. The moment he stepped into the maintenance corridor, conversation stopped. A few people nodded at him. Others stared and quickly looked away. Evan hated it. He kept his head down and focused on his work, recalibrating systems and checking stress points. His hands remembered the routines even when his mind wandered. Sayla walked beside him, as she always did. You are unsettled, she said.
I just want things to go back to normal, Evan replied. That is unlikely, she said gently.
He sighed. Yeah.
I figured. Later that day, Evan was summoned to command.
The request was not optional. The command chamber was larger than Evan remembered, filled with holograms and unfamiliar faces. Human officers stood beside alien representatives from several species. When Evan entered, every eye turned toward him. Sayla stopped at the doorway. You will remain here, a human commander said to her. Sayla's gaze sharpened. I will not. A ripple of tension spread through the room. Evan raised a hand. It's okay, he said quietly. I'll be fine. Sayla searched his face, then nodded once and stepped back, though she remained close enough to hear everything. Evan stood alone at the center of the chamber, suddenly aware of how small he was. An alien with long, translucent features spoke first. "Human Evan Mercer, your actions prevented the loss of this station." Evan shifted uncomfortably. "I just did my job." "That is the concern," another voice said. This one was sharper, colder. "Your job should not have allowed such an outcome." The hologram shifted, replaying footage from the battle. Evan running through maintenance shafts, overriding systems, standing in the power chamber. "You acted beyond standard parameters," the alien continued, "with creativity and risk tolerance uncommon among most species." Evan frowned. "People were going to die."
Exactly, the alien replied.
"Most species calculate loss. Humans choose to intervene." A human officer spoke next. "Several factions are asking questions. About you. About humans." Evan's stomach tightened. "What kind of questions?" "Whether your species is unstable," the officer said honestly, "or dangerous." Murmurs filled the chamber. Sayela's voice cut through them. "Humans are adaptive," she said.
You mistake that for danger. The translucent alien turned to her. "Your attachment clouds your judgment, Terex."
Sayela did not flinch. "My judgment has been validated." Evan glanced back at her, surprised. The commander raised a hand for silence.
"This council will decide what to do with this information. Until then, Evan Mercer will remain on Rhea."
9 under observation. Evan opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He nodded once. Understood. When they left the chamber, Evan let out a long breath.
"That went badly," he said.
It could have been worse, Scylla replied. They did not try to claim you.
"Claim me?"
Evan repeated. Like property? Yes. He stopped walking. That's not happening. Sayla turned to face him.
"That is why I spoke." For the first time, Evan truly understood. Sayla wasn't just protecting him from physical danger. She was shielding him from political ones. The days that followed were tense. Unmarked ships lingered near the station, never crossing into restricted space, but never leaving either. Observers came and went. Data requests increased. Humans were tested, evaluated, measured. Evan was asked to explain his actions again and again. Each time, his answer stayed the same. "I saw a problem. I fixed it." That answer confused them more than any complex explanation could have. Meanwhile, Sayla changed. She still stayed close, still watched the corridors, but her behavior softened. She no longer positioned herself in front of Evan automatically. Instead, she walked beside him. One evening, as they sat in the unit, Evan finally said what had been sitting in his chest for days. "You don't treat me like I'm fragile anymore." Sayela looked at him.
"You are not." "That's new," he said.
"No," she replied. "My understanding is new," he smiled faintly. "You know, for someone who started off acting like I belonged to her, you've changed a lot." Sayla tilted her head. "So have you." The quiet moment was interrupted by a sudden alert on Sayla's wrist device. Her expression shifted instantly. "What is it?" Evan asked. "The council has convened an emergency assembly," she said. "And you are required to attend." Evan groaned. "Again?" "This time," she said, "it is not about what you did. They arrived at the assembly hall to find representatives from dozens of species present, both in person and via hologram. The atmosphere was heavy. A massive figure appeared at the center display. An alien Evan did not recognize. Its voice echoed deeply. "The car raid was not an isolated event," it said. "It was a test." A murmur spread. "They are probing for resistance," the figure continued. "They now know that humans respond unpredictably under pressure. Evan felt Ciela tense beside him. Several factions propose preemptive containment of humanity, the figure said, before further escalation.
Evan's blood ran cold. A human representative stood.
Containment? You mean restriction?
Control. Yes, the alien replied. For the greater stability of the galaxy, Sayla stepped forward before Evan could stop her. You speak of stability while inviting tyranny. The alien's eyes narrowed.
Your species is not neutral in this matter.
No, Sayla said. We are observant. She turned to the council.
Humans do not seek dominance, but they will not accept submission. Evan felt dozens of gazes fall on him. The alien leader spoke again.
Then, perhaps you should explain why a single human altered the outcome of a car assault. Evan swallowed and stepped forward. I didn't alter it alone, he said.
I had help. From systems.
From people. From her.
He glanced at Ciela.
I didn't win because I'm special,
Evan continued.
I won because humans don't wait to be important before they act.
Silence filled the hall. That's what scares you, he said quietly. We don't need permission. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the translucent alien from before said, Your words are inconvenient. Evan shrugged. I get that a lot. A few humans laughed nervously. The council did not reach a decision that day. But when Evan left the hall, he felt something shift, like pressure easing, just slightly. Later that night, as the station drifted in quiet orbit, Evan stood by the window, staring at the stars. I never wanted to represent my whole species, he said. Sayela stood beside him.
You do not have to. But I am, he replied.
Yes, she said.
Because you did not try to be?
He looked at her. Do you regret choosing me? She answered without hesitation. No. After a pause, she added, But I no longer see you as mine to guard. Evan raised an eyebrow. Oh, I see you as someone who chooses to stand, she said, and allows others to stand with him. He smiled softly. Outside, distant ships adjusted their positions, no longer watching with hunger, but with caution. The galaxy was learning something new, and it was not finished learning yet. The final decision did not come quickly. For weeks after the emergency assembly, Outpost Rhea, 9 existed in a strange balance. Ships still watched from a distance, but they no longer crept closer. Messages flowed between systems. Councils argued. Analysts studied recordings of the car attack again and again. And always, the name Evan Mercer appeared. Evan tried to live normally. He returned to maintenance full-time, crawling through access shafts and checking systems just like before. But normal was gone. People greeted him now. Some thanked him. Some asked questions he could not answer. A few avoided him completely. Ciela remained with him, but in a different way. She no longer walked ahead or blocked his path. She asked instead of deciding. She listened more than she spoke. One morning, as Evan adjusted a gravity stabilizer, a junior technician watched him closely. Sir, the young man said, clearly nervous. Is it true you faced car raiders with no weapon? Evan tightened a bolt and shrugged. I had tools. That's not the same, the technician said. Evan smiled faintly. Most days it is. Word spread, not as rumor, but as something heavier, an idea. Humans were not strong because they were fearless. They were strong because they acted anyway. That idea unsettled many species. The message finally arrived on a quiet cycle delivered through every official channel at once. The Galactic Council would convene in full. A final vote would be taken. Humanity's status would be decided. Evan stood in the transport chamber, staring at the distant curve of the planet below. The shuttle hummed softly around him.
I don't belong there,
he said. Ciela stood beside him, hands folded calmly. You belong wherever you choose to stand. He exhaled slowly.
That doesn't make this easier. No, she agreed, but it makes it honest. The council chamber was enormous, far larger than the one on Rhea. 9 representatives from dozens of species filled the space, some physical, some projected.
The air felt dense with attention. Evan felt very small. He stood at the center platform, dressed simply, no rank markings, no symbols, just a human in worn station clothing. Sayla stood with the Terex delegation, watching him with steady focus. The council leader spoke, their voice echoing across the chamber. Human Evan Mercer, you have been called to speak, not as a commander or diplomat, but as an example. Evan swallowed.
I'm not sure I'm qualified. That is precisely why you are here, the leader replied. A projection appeared, showing data from across human space, incidents where humans had intervened in disasters, rebellions, evacuations. Not always successfully, not always cleanly, but always decisively. You do not wait for consensus, the leader continued. You do not calculate loss the way we do. This makes you unpredictable. Evan nodded slowly. That's fair. A murmur rippled through the chamber.
Some among us believe this unpredictability is a threat, the leader said. They argue for restrictions on human expansion and activity. Evan felt his chest tighten.
And others? He asked quietly. They argue that restraint would be a mistake, the leader replied.
That your species responds to pressure by becoming more capable, not less. The chamber split into quiet tension. Evan took a breath and spoke. I won't pretend to understand galactic politics, he said. I barely understand half the systems I work on until they break. A few listeners leaned in.
But I do understand this, he continued. When something is wrong and you know you can help, doing nothing feels worse than failing.
He looked around the chamber. I didn't act to prove anything. I didn't think about humanity or the galaxy. I thought about people who would die if I didn't move. Silence followed.
That's not heroism, Evan said. That's responsibility. An alien voice spoke sharply.
And what happens when your sense of responsibility conflicts with ours?
Evan met the speaker's gaze. Then we talk, or we argue, or we find another way.
And if you cannot agree,
the alien pressed. Evan paused. Then he answered honestly.
Then we'll still act, he said. But we'll accept the consequences. The words hung in the air.
Sayla watched closely, her expression unreadable. The council leader spoke again.
Your answer lacks reassurance.
Evan nodded. I know. Another alien stood, tall and severe. Then why should we trust your species? Evan didn't answer right away. He thought of Rhea. 9. Of smoke-filled corridors. Of Sayela standing between him and a weapon, without hesitation. You shouldn't trust us blindly, he said at last. You should watch us. Work with us.
Let us fail and learn like everyone else.
He gestured around the chamber.
You've been deciding our future without asking what kind of future we want to help build.
A low hum of reaction spread. The leader raised a hand.
Enough.
The council withdrew to deliberate. Time stretched. Evan stood alone on the platform, feeling the weight of every gaze. His hands trembled slightly, but he did not step back. Sayla watched from across the chamber, pride and worry intertwined. Finally, the council returned. The leader spoke.
Humanity will not be contained,
they announced.
Nor will it be elevated above others.
A collective breath was held. Instead, the leader continued. Humanity will be recognized as an independent, adaptive force, a species to be engaged, not controlled. The chamber erupted into noise. Evan felt his knees weaken with relief. Sayla closed her eyes briefly.
There will be conditions, the leader said. Shared oversight.
Open channels. Mutual accountability.
Evan nodded.
That's fair. The leader looked directly at him. Your species has been seen. Evan swallowed. We've always been here. After the assembly, the galaxy felt different. Not safer, not simpler, but more honest. On the return journey, Evan sat quietly in the shuttle. Sayla stood nearby, watching the stars slide past. You did not speak as a representative, she said.
I spoke as myself, Evan replied.
She nodded. That is why they listened.
When they returned to Rhea, 9,
life slowly resumed its rhythm. Ships came and went. Trade resumed. Repairs continued. Evan returned to his unit, exhausted beyond words. He sat on the edge of his bed and laughed softly. I think I just helped decide the future of humanity. Sayla allowed herself a small smile. Yes, he looked at her. You started all this by moving in and acting like I belonged to you. I was wrong, she said simply.
Oh? Evan asked.
Yes, she said. You never belonged to me. He waited. You belonged to yourself, Sayla continued. And because of that, you choose who stands beside you. Evan nodded slowly. And you? She met his gaze, calm and open. If you will have me. He smiled, warm and tired. I think I already do. Outside the station, stars burned steadily, no longer distant observers, but neighbors. The galaxy had learned something important. Humans did not need to be owned. They did not need to be ruled. They only needed to be seen. And once seen, they could not be ignored.